Hey folks, Doc Patterson here. Good to see you. Our lesson for this week comes to us from the Gospel of Matthew chapter 15, verses 21 through 28. It's one of those passages of Scripture where a lot of different people have put forth a lot of different opinions about how we should understand it. I'm going to give you my take on it today, and we'll see what happens with that. I would love to hear you make comments on it. I would look forward to reading the comments on that, because this is, for many people, a conflictive passage of Scripture. It's the passage of Scripture where Jesus leaves the province of Galilee. He leaves Jewish territory, goes into Gentile territory, and he's approached by a Gentile woman who has a child that has some severe physical ailments, and she has faith in Jesus. She's heard about Jesus, she has faith in Jesus, and she wants Jesus to heal her daughter. And Jesus says, "No, I'm sorry, I can't do that." We're going to look into that. But you got to turn to that passage of Scripture in your New Testament. Take your New Testaments now and turn to Matthew chapter 15, verses 21 through 28. Pause your video and read those verses, and then come back to the video. Matthew 15, 21 through 28. Pause the video now. All right, I hope we're all back now. I want to talk about structure and adaptation today a little bit. Let's talk about structure first of all. A few weeks ago, I was at one of my grandson's baseball games, and they have a catcher, a guy that is a pretty good little catcher. He really is. But he was acting out. He got mad, got ticked off over something, and he was acting out. And he wasn't being disciplined for it. He was not being called down. He was not being calmed down. He was allowed to act out. And so he did himself an injustice, and did an injustice to his team and also to the coaches and to the entire game. The kid has the skills to seriously play ball if he gets the right coach as he moves on through the years. But if there's no disciplined structure to his behavior, he's not going to last very long. I'll tell you something else I seem to run into more and more frequently, and that is parents who think they're doing their children a favor by not taking them to church or to synagogue or to temple or to some other basic fundamental teaching institution where they can get some structure in moral, ethical behavior. Their rationale is that when their children are old enough, then they can pick their own religious or moral system, the one that's best for them. But I got to tell you, my experience, children who are not given religious structure throughout their childhood don't have the structural base to sensibly pick their own religious moral system. They just don't have it. And let me tell you something else that I just don't understand. I drive like an old man. Why? Because I'm an old man, and I enjoy driving like an old man. I have nowhere to go fast in my life, and so I drive like an old man. But other drivers get mad at me on the highway when I obey the speed limit. I obey the speed limit. It's not like I'm going 25 miles an hour in a 55 mile an hour zone. I'm going 55 miles an hour. But they get mad at me if I'm not exceeding the speed limit. And folks, the bottom line, whether you like it or not, is without the structural parameters of set speed limits, people die needlessly. Probably one of my favorite examples of the need for structure is in playing the guitar. You all know I play the guitar. Those of you who watch this channel, I have a lot of songs that I've played, a lot of covers, a lot of original songs played on the guitar and sung. Haven't been able to do that lately because of some physical limitations, but I'm looking forward to getting back to that, but we'll see down the road. But at any rate, when it comes to the guitar, it's very important to follow structure, melodic structure. You gotta select the chords that support the melody. And you gotta adhere to that melodic structure. If you don't, then you're just making noise. There's a lot of people making noise out there today, getting paid big bucks to do it, but they're just making noise because they don't have any structure, no melodic structure to base their music on. Jesus' mission was a well-structured mission. And the very essence of that mission was the revealing of his identity as the Jewish Messiah. Matthew makes that perfectly clear all through his gospel. Indeed, Matthew wants us to know that all of Jesus' works of service, all of his signs, all of his miracles, all of his teachings were given to support the structure of Jewish messianic mission. And so we really shouldn't be surprised that in this passage of Scripture that you just read, that Jesus says to the Gentile woman, look, I can't help you. I was sent to save the lost children of Israel. And it wouldn't be right for me to take food from Israel's table and feed it to those who are not of Israel's table. Well, she then makes a suggestion. She says, shouldn't the dogs at least get some of the leftovers? She says dogs because Jesus mentions dogs. Gentiles were referred to as dogs, not because they were thought of as being lower class creatures in the hierarchy of created beings, but because when they came into into Jewish provinces and Jewish land, they tend to travel together in groups for safety purposes, like a pack of dogs, and so they were nicknamed the dogs. But at any rate, she says, look, shouldn't the dogs at least get some of the leftovers? And that's when Jesus capoed up. You know what a capo is? This is a capo. The way it works is we have a guitar neck coming along here. Here's the guitar, here's the neck coming this way. We put this rubber part over top of the strings on the guitar neck, and then we snug it down tightly against it like that. And what that does is change the song. And it doesn't change the song. It changes the key that the song is written in. It doesn't change the structure of the song. It doesn't even change the fingering configuration for the chords in the song. What it does is adapt the structure of the song so that more people can join in singing and appreciating the heart-changing melody of the song. Jesus capoed up. He adapted the good news such that it wasn't limiting, but rather inclusive. To that end, let's talk a little bit about adaptation. When I was in high school, the guy that was on the wrestling team that wrestled in the heaviest class was a monster. He was an absolute monster, but he was slow. And so the coach told him, said, look, you have a chance to go to states and maybe even win at state. But you're never going to get that far if you don't somehow learn to move a little bit better out there on the wrestling mat. So anyway, this guy went and talked to the phys ed teacher for the women, who also happened to be into ballet. And she began teaching him some ballet moves and how to move gracefully and how to move quickly and how to move decisively. And it was interesting. He made it all the way to the regionals. And in the regionals, when he got behind by a few points, you know what he started to do? He started into his ballet moves, completely outside of the box for wrestling, started into the ballet moves, ended up winning that match and moving from regionals up to the state match. He didn't win the state match, he came in second place, but that was phenomenal. Sometimes adaptation involves adding something new that doesn't seem to belong. John Wesley, the founder of the Methodist movement, was asked one time, said, can we use and utilize some of the traditions and the rituals that come from other bodies of faith, other denominations? And he said, oh yes, absolutely. He said, that's what the Israelites did when they plundered the Egyptians. And he coined that term, plundered the Egyptians. And he did that in such a way that he said, we can adapt who we are and what we are by utilizing things that are outside the arena of our existence in order to make our arena of existence even better. Sometimes adaptation involves adding something new that doesn't seem to belong, but I don't know why I went into all that, because that's not what's happening here. Jesus isn't adding anything new to his message, and he's certainly not subtracting anything. His message to the Gentile woman is the same message that he had for the Pharisees in Jerusalem regarding the law of Moses. And it's the same message he had for the apostles asking about salvation with regard to a mustard seed. It is the message of the power of faith. What Jesus did was simply capo up to include those who weren't Jews into the circle of salvific grace. So how do you do that? How do you capo up? Well, friends, I won't pretend to have a definitive answer for you. I will tell you what worked for me in my relationship with musicians. I had a kind of an outreach mission toward secular vocational musicians who were trying to make a living playing music. It's a hard way to go. Being a musician's a hard way to go. And so a lot of these people needed some real assistance in order to get through life. And so I reached out to them, and you know what? I didn't talk about grace. I just tried to be gracious. I didn't preach about faith in Jesus or talk religious talk. I just did my best at representing him. And when they began to ask questions about my behavior, that's when I took the opportunity to invite them to come to church and play their music. I didn't tell them they needed to go to church. I just invited them. Come and play some music for us here in church. And you know what? They did. I didn't lecture. about basic virtues like kindness and generosity and long-suffering and forgiveness. I just pointed it out when I saw it. I didn't flaunt my faith, but I didn't apologize for it either. Now, to be sure, there are a few musicians, and I got to say very few, but there are a few musicians who think that they are somehow above having to use a capo. That's true. Me, I take every chance I have to flaunt its worth in adapting songs so that more people can enjoy the creative structure of melody and harmony. Because, folks, it's not about how good you personally are as an artist. It's about how great we can be together as a body in harmony. And the same is true regarding our faith. The great worth of this passage is that Jesus shows us the wonderful, wonderful benefits in learning to adapt our faith to include more folks in the good news melody. There is a beautiful old hymn whose first lyric line is, "There's within my heart a melody, Jesus whispers sweet and low." You know what he's whispering? I think he's whispering, Capo up. Folks, you take care, and we'll see you next week right here on Doc Patterson YouTube. We'll see you. Bye-bye.